Let the scriptures speak for themselves.
Cool. Well, I'd love to jump from here to the next chapter in Mark, which is where we get this phrasing. It's Mark chapter 14, verse 62, where Jesus tells him that you'll see the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. And just for our listeners, I'm showing my screen here on Mark 13 as well. He says, so the Olivet Discourse, he's with the inner circle plus Andrew, so those four brothers, and he's predicting the destruction of the physical temple. And when he's doing that, as we just read, he says the stars will be falling from heaven, the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then verse 26 of 13, he says, then everyone will see the Son of Man arriving in the clouds with a great power and glory. And then he'll send his angels to gather his elect. So in Mark 13, he's telling the inner circle with clarity. He's saying, look, everyone, right, in this generation, they're going to see the Son of Man coming on the clouds. And then when he's being interviewed, which I'd like to pick your brain about, David, in chapter 14, verse 62, he's standing before the high priest, and he gives him that same phrase. He says, he asked him in 60, then the high priest stood up before them, asked Jesus, have you no answer? What is this they are testifying against you? But he was silent and did not answer. Again, the high priest questioned him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One? And he says in 62, I am, said Jesus, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power, the power being another name for the Almighty or of God, and right, coming with the clouds of heaven. So what does this mean? David, enlighten us. What this phrase, right? I know it's from Daniel, right? But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what he's meaning by this.
Well, to me, again, this is one of those where he says you're going to see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power. And that to me harkens right back to Psalm, where David is saying,
Psalm 110.
Yes, yeah. 110.
Yeah.
He says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit thou at my right hand.
Yeah.
So David,
don't make your enemies my footstool, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
David talking about his throne, Jesus' throne was right beside God's in heaven. So when I hear that, I'm thinking of the throne of God, right? And I'm thinking, well, man, is Caiaphas going to be able to see the throne of God? Because that's in the highest heaven, apparently, from what I've read. And then coming in the clouds of heaven. Now, whatever form that took in the first century, and I truly believe that if we'd been there and seen it and I think I would have been blown away.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, I know that reading Josephus, at the time of the temple destruction, there was this huge storm, and all the people that saw this storm, it was so violent, they said, this has to be a sign for something bad.
Yeah, right.
All the soldiers were sitting there watching it going, this is terrible. Yeah. Something's happening. What's happening? Is that what they're talking about? I don't know. I don't know that for sure, Grant. Yeah. And it's like one of those things where, I can't for specific say if there was a visible thing that was seen. There were visible things, obviously,
sure.
But
which one was
what does it mean specifically? Does it mean that, or does it mean something?
Yeah, it's
hard for me to say, but all I do know is that these things seem to point, like we said about the previous passage, seems to point to exactly what Christ was telling them was going to happen in their lifetimes. And he not only said that, by the way, in the Olivet Discourse, he also said it, I pulled it up here in Matthew 16. He said in a totally different context. He said, there will be some standing here that will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in the kingdom.
Yeah, that's right.
So either he lied or this was what he was talking about.
Yep, that's right before he climbs up on the Mount of Transfiguration, right?
Yeah. And
it's recorded in that same order in every one of the Gospels. I think I probably marred it in my first teaching.
You can't ignore that, right? And so it's like, man, this is definitely what he's talking about. Now, again, I can't tell you what that looked like, but I know that everybody who experienced it was scared to death because that's what's in the history books, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that's an honest answer. I appreciate that. And like I said, when I taught through the Olivet Discourse in that really long video, I counted somewhere around 8 supernatural, miraculous, freaky, clear signs from God, right? In Josephus. And he even says himself, he's like, I wouldn't record this if there wasn't so many witnesses because it's so bizarre. And I'm like, man, like he is so weirded out by the events that as a historian and with his high reputation, he wouldn't have written it down if there wasn't, but he's like, everyone saw this, so I'm going to write it down. And one of the things is in the heavens, they saw themselves surrounded by armies. And so I don't know if that's the, specific fulfillment. I think it could have been any of them, could have been all of them. But for me, it's like what it means that you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power. What he means is that you will see high priest, you will see Peter, James, John, and Andrew. You'll see that I have taken up authority, and it will be proven here on the earth. And I think the destruction, the judgment of his own temple, the closing out of the old covenant by the breaking of the covenant of his Old Testament people. I think the Lord in many ways, with many signs that I've spoken about before and Josephus records, he was showing that, look, I am in authority now. I'm in power now. And you're going to see that, I think sometimes we're running to a wooden literal translation, like he's going to look up and there he is. But right. Maybe he meant something else, right? Maybe he meant like, no, you're going to recognize that I'm in authority. You're going to recognize that I am at the right hand of the Father, not by seeing like a physical God who's spirit, and Jesus in the heavens, right? Not by like, gaping into the heavenlies, but by literally seeing like what is to take place in his lifetime.
Well, if we try to be 100% literal with that, in my view, it's like, well, what did Christ look like? Like he looked like a human. His resurrected body was very human-like, right? Just spiritual in a way, right?
Sure.
And so let's say that he actually floated down and was up there in the cloud. He would look like a little, he would look like a little dot of light, right? Yeah. So who am I to say that did or didn't happen? We have no way to know, really, right? So it's like, I don't even try. I'm just like, this is obviously talking about what happened then. So.
I think as Westerners, we, to a fault, take everything as most literally as we possibly can, even if it makes no sense, I think, like, that's my bias. Like, when I come to a text, like, that's how I read it. Like, without extra study or something, I'll read a text. I'm like, okay, stars are going to fall from heaven, but...
Yeah. And I want to add to that, too. I want to say, I may be literal, but also very materialistic.
Yeah.
Materialistic. Because what we always do is we think the mark of the beast, when is the barcode going to be imprinted on my hand? Or when is the microchip going to be stuck into my flesh?
Yeah. Where do we find that in Revelation, right? A barcode and a
and so now we're looking for something very, very physical. And I have a whole video on actually other biblical references that show marks, and they're always spiritual. They're never visible.
No, that's right.
And
it's
so
symbolism.
I'm just saying that, like you're saying, we tend to come with a very Western, materialistic, scientific kind of mind. And so we always look for the materialistic view first. And if we don't see it, then sometimes we go, well, that must be an allegory, or it must be a symbol or something else, So
well, that's a good point. Yeah. We are people of our time.
Yes.
Cool. So, no, that's really helpful. I just wanted to show people that Old Testament passage because I think it's so often used. And then Mark 14:62, the Son of Man sitting. He tells the high priest, like we've just said, that he will see that take place. And he just told him in the previous chapter, the disciples, you guys will see this take place. And then if we come on and bring a heavy systematic theology view, we say, well, I know he told this group and that group and this group over here that it would be, for them to witness, but actually none of them saw any of this, I think it's a stretch, and not only is it a stretch, but it, to me, part of Jesus being the true Son of God, part of him being deity, involves him being a true prophet. And so whenever he prophesies, we hold him to the test of a prophet of the Old Testament, that what he prophesies must come to pass for him to be a true prophet, for him to be a son of God. So I think we don't realize it, and we unintentionally discredit our own Savior with the twisting of some of these prophecies.
Yeah, I would just agree with you on that. Yeah.
And I know, like, it's hard to put it that strongly, and I'm not trying to offend people, but again, I think it's unintentional, right, and well-meaning, but nevertheless, the end result is we end up making Jesus not to be a true prophet. I think again, unintentionally, not with evil, anything like that, but it's just that's where it ultimately leads.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to warn people of,
For
And I know
sure.
you do as well, and that's what you've talked about a lot.